Does every interaction with your ex feel like a battleground? Are you anxious every time you have to reach out to them or when they send you a message? If you're dealing with a narcissistic co-parent or any degree of difficult ex, then I imagine the answer to these questions is yes. Hi there, my name is Chelsea, and welcome to Parallel Perspective, the podcast that understands co-parenting with a narcissist is like playing chess with someone who thinks the board revolves around them. In today's episode, we're going to explore the unique communication challenges that arise when you're trying to co-parent with a narcissist. Even if you are parallel parenting and limiting communication, narcissists will always find a way to push your buttons and create a difficult situation. So let's get started. So we're going to delve into some common communication issues you may encounter with your narcissistic co-parent and some strategies you can use to navigate them. First, let's talk about manipulation and gaslighting. One of the most prevalent challenges when co-parenting with a narcissist is dealing with manipulation and gaslighting. Narcissists like to twist the truth, deny previous statements, or even make you question your own sanity. For example, your ex might falsely accuse you of neglecting your child's needs or twist your words to make you appear unreasonable. Or they might call you unreasonable and difficult if you don't agree with them when you have a good reason not to. So how can you handle this? One strategy is to keep a record of all communication, which is why I always say that limiting your communication to written forms is the best thing you can do so that you have proof of what is said. You can even use an app like Our Family Wizard to track conversations and refer back to them when needed. So if your ex claims that they didn't say something that they did, you have the proof. But when it comes to them making accusations against you, proof isn't really going to matter. The most important thing to remember is that they are accusations from someone whose opinion doesn't matter. It may make you feel angry, but over time you can learn to let it go. And trust me, this is going to make communicating with your ex far less stressful, even if they keep trying their tricks. All right, so let's talk about the lack of empathy and emotional connection when it comes to communicating with a narcissist. It may not seem like it, but this does have a lot to do with communication and can cause communication issues. Narcissists usually struggle with empathy and emotional connection, making it difficult for them to understand or respond to the concerns or emotions of others. But don't start feeling bad for them. This isn't an innocent lack of skill, but a mechanism used to perpetuate their inflated sense of self-importance. So, for example, say you express a concern about your child's progress in school. Your ex-partner might dismiss your concerns or belittle your opinion. They may brush it off because their kid is the smartest kid ever, and this is actually so they can take credit for the child's achievements, or they may just not care. I know this can be super frustrating, especially when you can't wrap your head around how a parent can simply not care about their child, but you can't make the narcissist care, no matter how hard you try. The best thing you can do is keep your communication focused on facts and only share relevant information, like changes in their health. Speaking of which, before we move on to other examples of communication issues, I want to share a question I received from a member of my support group in regard to parallel parenting. She asked, from a legal standpoint, what topics do I have to discuss with my ex? I have them, the kids, the majority of the time, and now he has this idea that we have to discuss everything involving the kids. Okay, so when it comes to discussing anything with your ex, you need to share information on topics that have a significant impact on your child's well-being, such as education, medical, healthcare, and any major life changes. This is the basic expectation under family law, but many judges and case masters are going to encourage open communication and cooperation. Their goal is to get you all set up for co-parenting and then dismiss your case and get you out of there. However, if communication is hostile, these expectations go out the window. In many cases, you can actually have it stipulated in your court order that the sharing of information is limited to significant topics. So ultimately, you are within your rights to ignore your ex's questions unless they have to do with those topics or changes in arrangements. Okay, I know we haven't talked about much so far in regards to communication issues, but I feel like it's time for a breather. So stretch your legs, look out the window onto the beautiful world, or simply sit back and enjoy the music. I'll be back to talk more about communication issues when co-parenting with a narcissist and how to deal with them. Okay, let's get back into it and talk about power struggles and control. Even in co-parenting situations, narcissists will fight for power and control, whether it's over you, your child, or everyone involved. They may try to exert dominance, make unilateral decisions, or manipulate situations to maintain control. Here's an example. They may schedule activities during your parent time without consulting you, or attempt to make major decisions without your input, like getting your child's hair cut, getting their ears pierced, things like that. To deal with this, you need to establish clear boundaries, as well as a structured co-parenting plan right from the very beginning. And if you didn't listen to the last episode, it's actually all about creating and implementing a parallel parenting plan. So take a listen to that, or you can always visit my blog for more information on parallel parenting plans. I'll drop a link in the show notes. All right, so when it comes to making this plan and establishing boundaries, clearly state the areas in which each parent has decision-making authority. For example, if your child lives primarily with you, you get to decide where they go to school. When your child is with their other parent, they get to decide what activities to involve them in. And for things like haircuts, ear piercing, sort of big decisions like that, decision making has to be together. These are just examples. These aren't hard and fast rules of how to establish these boundaries. If you have a court order, it may look a little differently. In my case, initially in our court orders, we were expected to make decisions together. But once I was granted sole custody of my daughter, which meant that our father still had visitation and parenting time rights, I was the one that got to make all decisions without having to consult with him, because we proved in court through those text messages and emails that I kept that anytime I did try to consult with him on a decision, I was met with hostility. So the judge decided to give me sole custody. So I had decision-making rights. I didn't have to consult with him on anything, except I did still have to, there was still an expectation to communicate with him about major issues. So that's how that worked out in court. But when you're trying to do it on your own, it can be hard to figure out where to set these boundaries and what boundaries to set, and if your ex is actually going to follow them or not. So if your ex has difficulty following these rules, which they probably will, I would suggest that you gently remind them that these issues could always be brought to family court and drawn up in a court order. And that's not a threat, that is a consequence. If they can't play nice with you, then you guys need a third party to sort of make these or establish these boundaries for you. And so if you do have a court order, a lot of these things about who decides on what is going to be included in the document. Now, when you have a court order, it is a legally binding document that minimizes power struggles and allows you to maintain control over your own parenting rights. If your ex doesn't follow the order, there are legal consequences. Now, that being said, if you don't follow the order, there's legal consequences. So I always say to parents who haven't taken the step to court yet, is to try to stand your ground and maintain reasonable boundaries outside of court, because that actually gives you more control and say over what's happening. Once you land in court, the court will decide the boundaries, and there may be boundaries that you don't like, but you have to follow them just like your ex has to follow them. But again, if you are struggling with this, if your ex won't agree on anything and it's causing you stress and it's causing your child stress, please talk to a lawyer and take it to court. And if this is an avenue that you haven't explored yet, again, talk to a lawyer, or you can even contact your local family court office for advice. They can't file or do anything for you, but they can sort of guide you in the right direction. All right. So we're not here to talk about court orders, although that's a very important aspect of parenting with a narcissist. We're here to talk about communication issues. And the big one I want to talk about last is co-parenting interference. Narcissists will oftentimes counter-parent, which means engaging in various tactics to interfere with your parenting efforts. For instance, they may badmouth you to your child or refuse to potty train your child when you are trying to potty train them, just to make things difficult for no other reason. And if this is something you're dealing with, what you do really depends on the severity of the situation. If your ex is badmouthing you, this is a huge no-no. It can actually lead to something called parental alienation, which is 100% illegal and happens when one parent turns a child against the other and destroys the parent-child relationship. This is why in the next episode, we're going to talk about how to talk to your child about their parent. This is why it's so important that you do not badmouth your ex to your child, in front of your child, or around your child, even if it happens innocently. If something comes out and your ex can prove this can happen, it will look bad in court. So it's very important that you do not speak negatively about your ex. That doesn't mean you can't be honest about their behaviors, which again is the topic of next month's episode. So you'll have to come back and listen to that one to learn more. But in the case of your ex badmouthing, you document what you can and speak to a legal professional and pursue that. Don't expect your ex to be thrown into jail. Likely what is going to happen is a stipulation will be placed in a court order where they are not allowed to badmouth you. And then if they do, then they are in violation of the court order. A lot has to happen to prove parental alienation, but that doesn't mean that you can't take the issue to court and have something done about it. Now, if it's something like not potty training your child, there really isn't much you can do. Your ex is allowed to parent your child their own way to a certain extent. If the child is being harmed and anything like that, that's an issue in and of itself. But the point of parallel parenting and why we call it parallel parenting is if you imagine two parallel lines are parallel because they run side by side and they will never intersect. That means that you sort of stay in your lane and do your parenting thing. So if they don't want to do what you are doing, they really don't have to. And it sucks. And it's stupid when it comes to things like potty training or, things that have to do with the development and well-being of your child. To give you an example, when my daughter was young, I decided that I didn't want her to have sippy cups. I had read some current information on how they can affect oral development. I made the choice I didn't want to use them. And I've seen many parents use them. Whether or not they do cause oral, I think it just increases the risk of oral issues, but I just decided, why risk it? I'm just not going to do it. I communicated this to my ex. I even sent cups that she could use with straws to my ex. He insisted on using sippy cups, and he really didn't have a reason to. I provided him with the cups to use. He just decided to counter-parent and to do the opposite of what I asked. Was there really anything I could do about it? No. The way I saw it was that at least when she was with me, she wasn't using a sippy cup. She wasn't with him a lot at that time. It wasn't really going to cause a lot of issue down the road. I know that it's hard to deal with your ex counter-parenting you, but again, just stay in your own lane. Focus on your own parenting efforts, and you will see the results of your hard work. In the case of potty training, maybe your ex isn't on board with potty training, but in the end, your child's not going to be in diapers forever because their other parent is lazy, manipulative. They will eventually potty train because you are putting the effort into making that happen. Maybe you got to put in a little bit more effort, which sucks. But ultimately, it's all about what's best for your kid. So when it comes to that sort of the counter-parenting issue, which I know isn't exactly a communication issue, kind of went off the rails a bit here on the topic, but it's still important to talk about because basically you just need to try to maintain a sense of consistency and expectation in your home. It's in your care where your child is going to thrive. And if you give them lots of love and support, then how their other parent parents them isn't going to matter much in the end. So there you go. There are some major communication issues you may run into while co-parenting with a narcissist, but there are ways to deal with them. Unfortunately, there's no quick and easy fix when it comes to communication with a narcissist, and nothing you say will change the way they act. The best thing you can do is set boundaries and refuse to feed into their attempts to create a conflict. This can take a lot of emotional control, which we will talk about in a future episode, about how to not lose your ever-loving mind when they act like idiots. But again, like I mentioned, our next episode, we're actually going to focus on how to talk to your child about narcissism and how to help them understand why their other parent acts the way they do. So until then, remember, parallel parenting won't make it perfect, but it will make it better. Thanks for tuning in. The advice provided in this podcast is not legal advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for personalized guidance. The terms narcissism and narcissists are used to refer to behaviors and tendencies of an individual, not as an official diagnosis. Music provided by Upbeat is free for creators, and don't forget to visit motherhood+mayhem.online for more information. Thanks for listening and take care.